Welcome to the Face to Face. I'm your host, Genevieve Lefebvre. Face to Face is a bilingual series of video recorded here at the Société francophone de Maillardville. We acknowledge la Société francophone de Maillardville operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam. We thank the Coquitlam, who continue to live on these lands, and care for them, along with the water that is above and below. Today we're welcoming Clay Helkenberg. Clay is one of the divers that helped cleaning the Sasamat Lake in North Port Moody. So welcome, Clay.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm ready to have you on a face-to-face today for a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So Clay, what sparked the Sasamat Lake cleanup and your focus on responsible trash disposal?
So we do cleanups all over at lakes all over southern BC, but we want to focus on lakes that have a lot of people that go to them, because those lakes tend to have just more trash. So we don't do one lake all the time. For me, I live in Chilliwack, so I do the Vancouver ones a bit less. But Sasamat Lake has just a ton of people, and they just lose so much trash. They lose phones, pretty much anything you'd imagine that you'd have out on a lake on a floaty.
Yes, okay. And last time, I think you guys even found a cell phone, and you actually found the owner. Can you tell us a bit about that story?
Yeah, so that's one of my biggest hobbies with this trash stuff, is just finding valuable items and trying to get them back to the owner. I take the most fun in that part. So when I'm finding cool stuff like that, you have to take out the trash as well. So that was one of the biggest things that when I started doing all this, finding cool items, but seeing all the trash alongside of them, I felt that I really had more responsibility to take that out too. So for that phone instance, at Sasamat Lake there, I got it back to a young girl that had been out, I think she was kayaking and dropped it off the side of the kayak. Hers was in a waterproof case, so it was totally fine. But I've definitely found several phones that had been underwater for quite a long time. My personal record is an iPhone 11. It was underwater for 6 months, and it worked almost flawless. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. They say it's water resistant, so I guess it's true, right?
Yeah, for sure. They definitely are, but waterproof cases definitely help, especially with depth.
Yes, absolutely. Your cleaning effort covers location from Kelowna to Tofino. So what motivates you to extend your mission to all those places?
So a lot of that has to do with just kind of finding new spots. Just like I said, very popular spots. Kelowna has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that visit there each year. And then when I go out to the West Coast, it's a bit of an interesting dive out there. I practice spearfishing out there.
Oh, wow.
Different open regulations and stuff like that. So sometimes I'll do trash dives out there under very popular crabbing docks or fishing docks. And same kind of stuff. People go out there and lose all sorts of stuff. So I just kind of join my passion of spearfishing with trash cleanups when I go out to the far coast.
Excellent. Documenting recovery dives on YouTube is quite unique, which I'm sure needs some specific equipment or different ways of doing those recordings. So how does the platform contribute to your mission?
So it's been pretty cool. It's basically starts with my inspiration to start with this in the first place. I've seen a lot of the guys in the States doing very similar things, and so I figured, why don't I just do that here? It started more or less with a GoPro I actually found in Cultus Lake.
In the water?
Yeah, as a GoPro that I found.
Of course.
I tried to return it. I wasn't able to return it. There wasn't much to go off of. So I ended up using that for quite a while. So mainly GoPros is the camera I use the most. Just the most versatile, and allows me to use my hands with my camera just strapped to my mask.
You don't use your phone underwater?
No, definitely not. Every once in a while, there's a couple other cameras we'll use for kind of more fancy photos. But for the most part, just GoPros. Yeah, and posting it to YouTube has grown a fair bit of audience for me. I use short videos for the most part, so I get a lot of traction on those. My full-length videos, not so much, but it's the YouTube's definitely contributed to me getting some sponsors, which allow me to do more trash cleanups and not so much out of pocket.
So how big is the team when you get to, let's take our Sasamat Lake here. How many people went and dive? How did that go? What happened? I even read like donuts were keeping you warm. Tell me about this full experience.
Yeah, so for this
Start from the beginning of the day and explain to us the full day.
For this one, there's a few different groups of divers, some scuba divers, some free divers. I do both, but I definitely have a passion for free diving. So I have a few different groups I can reach out to, and especially when the dives are in the city, it's a lot easier to organize people. So for that one, we had, I believe, 15 divers, about half and half scuba freediving, and then we had about 5 land-based volunteers to help organize the trash after. So that's a larger size one. A lot of the time it's me and a friend, like one or two people. So I have one of my good buddies, Henry. He comes out and does a lot of trash cleanups as well. He's been doing it for even longer than me. So it really ranges. Sometimes it's myself, sometimes it's upwards of 15, 20 people.
Excellent. And what happened during that? Did you guys get there in the morning, 9 a.m., 10 a.m.? And how do you guys decide? Is it like, do you guys start with this part of the lake? And do you take sections? How's that work?
Yeah, so we all meet up. We have a bit of a safety brief to start with. Have a couple donuts like we talked about.
Yes.
And yeah.
Because it's cold. You guys did it in January, right? Or December?
It's definitely cold. You get used to it, and especially with the suits we have. The suits are absolutely amazing. They're 7 mil thickness, and yeah, I stay warm. I do ice diving, so it's 2 degrees as well. It's chilly, your face gets cold eventually, but the more you move, the more you stay warm. But again, for that dive, we're gonna have a bit of a safety brief, then we're gonna spread out. We don't want people on top of each other, so we'll have different sections, say you go this way, kind of that way. For that dive, a lot of our freedivers broke off away from the scuba divers, and we kind of went around the corner. It's a lot easier for us as freedivers as a group because we can communicate on the surface. It's a lot harder for scuba divers as a large group to communicate, especially when the visibility is so murky when you start picking up trash. You definitely get separated very easy. So being able to connect and talk on the surface helps a lot. For that dive, as far as the freedivers go, we didn't go much more than 40 feet, picking up cans. And yeah, we found, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was just over 600 cans on that dive alone. So that's a pretty good cans and bottles. So pretty good cleanup. 600.
And I'm assuming most of it is closer to beaches, or it's just generally all over the lake?
So for that one particularly, there's not a lot of docks, but generally it's going to be hotspot around docks. But for that lake, people go out in floaties. I've been told in the summertime you'll see hundreds and hundreds of floaties out there with different people.
That's true.
And they're all drinking out there, and unfortunately they're just dropping their cans right into the water. We have a bit of a saying that like it's probably 10% accident and 90% reckless. But yeah, it's hard to say that 100% of that's an accident. You have to be more of a realist.
So Clay, during the pandemic, it gave you time to do those dives, right? So how has this influenced your mission?
Yeah, so it definitely made me get a lot more into this. I've always grown up on lakes and like nature. And during the pandemic, I went from 2 jobs to no jobs very quickly. So I started swimming a lot more.
Yes.
Yeah. So I started swimming a lot more, and I figured I might as well do something a bit worthwhile. So I'd always dreamed about starting a YouTube channel, and I thought now is the perfect time. It's an activity that gets me out away from other people. So yeah, I started picking up phones and picking up the cans as we went, and just kind of at a certain point I was diving probably 5 or 6 days a week. It was perfect in the summertime. I had a lot of fun with it, and it kind of evolved from there. Grew a bigger group of people. Different networks, and had a lot of people come out for different stuff, and the more I swam, the deeper I wanted to go. So I started getting into scuba diving. I started getting a lot better at freediving, having proper gear. I started off with just secondhand wetsuits, fins that didn't fit properly. Now to the current day, I have sponsors that have top tier gear, and it's pretty amazing.
Okay, so you have one of those big giant one tail. Do you have that? You know, I've seen this.
No, I don't have a monofin. Those are more for just straight diving down for line diving.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely have some pretty fancy carbon fiber fins now.
Okay, and so you started with free diving, which is, I've started with, I've never done cleanup, but I've done a lot of diving in my life, but just recreational. And it's quite something when you can't see.
Yes.
So, and I know winter, sometimes the visibility is a little bit better. Is it the same thing in the ocean and the lake? Because cleaning a lake, I'm not sure how does that go?
I would say lakes are more consistent. Each body of water is obviously quite different, but lakes are more consistent throughout the year. Obviously, if there's storms or a lot of runoff, it gets a bit murkier. The ocean, yeah, tides, algae bloom, there's so many more factors. But yeah, and then today we were in False Creek. So right by Science World, and that's one of the dirtier places you'll ever dive. It smells gross, but the amount of stuff that we pull out is crazy. And as soon as you touch something on the bottom there, visibility goes to absolute zero.
Yes, that's what I thought, right? Yeah. So it's difficult. So you probably leave things because you can't see it.
Oh, 100%. When we first went down there, the very first thing I grabbed was actually a guitar amp, a large guitar amp. And I could see stuff scattered around it, but I thought that was one of the funnier things. So that's the one thing I grabbed, and as soon as I pulled that to the surface, I went back down, and I couldn't even find the bottom. So you go to the bottom and you're touching around, you can feel, but you don't really want to be doing that because you don't know exactly what you're grabbing or touching. So.
Well, so when because that's ocean, right?
Yeah.
So when the visibility is not that great there, do you sometimes do dives on a 2-day step?
It kind of depends. Sometimes we'll just cancel a dive, move somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, it really depends per spot. I mean, for this one, like I said, as soon as you touch the bottom, visibility goes to 0. So you just kind of move to somewhere that's, 100 feet away that's a little bit better.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
yeah,
And you can
sometimes-
come back later, I guess, right?
Yeah, when it settles down a bit. But sometimes we'll cancel a dive if it's absolutely horrible.
So let's talk a bit about security. So collaborating with divers and security sponsor is recommendable. Can you share experiences from working with them?
Yeah, so I've had quite a few great opportunities. 3 of my biggest ones, diving sports. They help me out with all my diving gear. They just hook me up with that. So that's amazing because that's a huge cost. Pacific Pilsner's our other big one, and they basically help us with expenses. It's more of a recent sponsor, but gas, travel, stuff like that. So it's a huge thing. Obviously some free beverages, which is amazing.
Well, when you're diving, you need to hydrate because obviously you can't drink when you're on the water, right?
Yeah, for sure. So it's more of an after thing.
Yeah.
And then Swellfish Sporting Equipment, they actually gave me a boat a couple years ago. So
wow.
kind of a inflatable 12-foot long thing. So that was,
I thought you
was
a
amazing.
big boat, like
Not exactly a huge one, but for everything I do, it's absolutely amazing because I can get in and out of the water easily. Or spearfishing trips, it's amazing for as well. So those are my 3 biggest ones. Every once in a while, I'll do small things with companies for a sponsored post here and there. But
Yes.
yeah, those are my 3 biggest things, they've all been amazing to work with.
Amazing. So the Sasamat Lake, I want to go back to this. What was the biggest challenge to clean up that lake?
That one's a fairly simple one, honestly. It has a very gradual slope underneath. The only thing is once you start going deeper, it does get really dark. So some of the scuba divers went closer to 80 feet, and you need lots of lights because it's more of a tannic in that water that just gets darker the deeper you go down. So that's about the biggest challenge in that one. For that day, some of our divers were getting cold, but I find, especially freediving, as long as you're moving a lot, you stay warmer, but the trade-off in that is to hold your breath, you want to be still and calm. So it's a balance between the two.
So is those a factor influence your approach with your team and certain lakes, or like you have to think about all these factors together?
Yeah, so when we have bigger dives with like that one has 15 people, it is a little bit different. Definitely checking on each person, finding if they're warm, cold, whatever, you want them to stay safe. So with that one, we had a couple of people that got out of the water earlier than others. Okay. Just keeping track of everyone is probably the biggest challenge when you have a group like that. And you don't want anyone pushing it, it's just trash. So make sure everyone's safe for the bigger group dives is definitely the trickiest part.
So you guys were you were there for what, 1, 2, 3 hours? How long?
I would say, depending on who the people were, some people got out after 45 minutes an hour, and I think most of us stayed for about 2 hours in the water.
That's long enough, right? At this time of the year.
And then, so in the summer, I think some of our longest days have been almost a full work shift, like 6+ hours.
Wow.
Yeah, one of my favorite photos is me and a buddy just piled trash around us, hundreds and hundreds of cans, and probably 12 car tires stacked behind us.
Wow.
So that was one of my favorite pictures with us with some old
Where
gear.
was that?
That was at Cultus Lake.
Okay.
So in Chilliwack, that's where I live. So I hit up that lake a lot, and that's up there with one of the dirtiest lakes in the BC.
Oh wow, that's sad in some, but
Yeah.
that gives you some joy. That gives you something to do. But it's sad to say this.
The one positive for that is I have noticed in the last year or so, I don't know if it's more people swimming and cleaning up or less people littering, but there's a lot less new trash every time I go there. So that's definitely something awesome to see.
Thing to hear. So Clay, where can we find you on social media, and give us your YouTube details? Maybe the people that are listening to us today wants to find you and follow you and maybe support you, maybe join you, right?
Yeah, so all of my platforms are Aquatic Monkey on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. I do have a Patreon. It helps me a little bit with, again, some gas money, which is amazing. And yeah, it's just more of a project I do for fun.
Yes.
It's not a full-time job by any means, so it's just a fun hobby that helps clean up, and yeah, I have a lot of fun doing it and meet some great people. Well,
thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing all these tips, and thank you for what you do, because I think I love diving, but I'm not comfortable enough to go diving in lakes and stuff like this, and I know a lot of people would be scared to do it, so thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a niche that is not for everybody, but we have a lot of fun doing it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. So from the Société Francophone de Maillardville and the Tri-Cities Community Television and myself, Genevieve, thank you for joining us.
Sick. Alright, should be able to get us back to the other. This one might even work. See, I don't trust these things, basically because of these. It's just such a small little plastic piece that could break off and then you lose your item.